Hi everyone, today's recipe is cold noodle salad with a peanut sauce and garlic bread. So today we had barbecue at our son's home, and so I made the side salads. It turned out really good. I made two versions of the cold noodle salad, one with a little bit of spice for the adults and one with no spice for my granddaughter. She seemed to like it. She really loved the chicken, the barbecue chicken as well. So as far as I can tell, it's a hit recipe. Everybody seemed to enjoy it. I'm happy to share it. So here I have melted about 2 tablespoons of peanut butter in the microwave. Just melted it for maybe 40 seconds. To this I'm adding 2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar, and I will add 2 tablespoons of hoisin sauce as well. And the next will be the Worcestershire the Worcestershire sauce, again 2 tablespoons of that as well. And then of course the quintessential soy sauce is going to come next. So I don't really add salt or anything, because all the sauces that I've added for this noodle salad marinade, or dressing rather, have salt in it. What I will add is a little bit of ginger, about a teaspoon. And in hindsight, actually just tasting it later on, I felt I could have skipped it, but anyway, I added it. It was good. You could add it as well. I'm just tasting it for salt, etc., just making sure that it is to my satisfaction, and obviously it wasn't, because then I felt it needed some sugar. But so at this point, add some honey if you like. I'm going to add a sweetener and a little bit of hot water to thin the dressing out. And I added hot water for another reason, and that is I wanted to keep the peanut butter kind of mellow. I felt it was beginning to thicken up too much, but now I'm satisfied with it. So I think this dressing is good. So I'm going to put it aside. So I'm using the spinach rice vermicelli. I don't know where I picked it up, but it has been sitting in my pantry for a few months, so I wanted to use it up. But you can certainly use plain rice vermicelli, or any other noodle. It should work just fine. I'm going to use the entire pack. It's got these 4 squares in it. And for rice vermicelli, all you need to do is soak it in hot water for 5 minutes, and it's cooked. You don't need to actually boil it or anything like that. So I'm going to soak it in that hot water from my kettle and put it aside for 5 minutes. Now you have to make sure you put a timer, because this thing can overcook. So after 5 minutes, you want to rinse it out with cold water and add and oil the noodles up with sesame oil. I forgot to take the video of that. So anyway, in terms of veggies, I'm going to add these sprouts. I bought a pack of these sprouts from the grocery store. I'm also chopped up some mango and coriander. I've washed and ran the sprouts through my salad spinner. Here I'm making the smaller batch, the one without any spice. So I took some of the noodles, I added some of the veggies, and now I will add about 2 tablespoons of the dressing and mix it up. This, rice vermicelli cannot be mixed with a fork. You have to get your fingers in there. So obviously when we are cooking, our hands are clean. So there is no issue with that. And this is really the only way to mix rice vermicelli properly, is you make sure that you get in there with your fingers. So this version has absolutely no spice, so this is done. I'm tasting it to make sure I'm happy with it. I am. And so this one is for my granddaughter. Obviously she's only 2.5 years old, so no spice for her yet, though she does love it. She'll cry a little bit and cry spice, spice, but she'll keep eating spice, but then later on she gets a tummy ache, so no spice for her. Oh my goodness, she's adorable. Okay, so here I'm going to add some sesame seeds, just for a little bit of extra flavor, and I'm going to put it aside in a Tupperware container because this is going to go with us, and it's easier to carry in a Tupperware container than a glass one, also lighter. So this smaller batch is done, and now we'll move on to the main batch. So the rest of the noodles, I just realized I want to spice up my dressing, so here's the dressing. I'm going to add to it some hot chili oil. I've actually used up all the oil, which is where all the spices, but I'm going to use the chilies anyway. Now the chilies are not that spicy, so I could have probably used more. But if I was using the oil, I would only use the 1 teaspoon. But the chilies were nice. It has a nice lingering kind of spice. It's quite nice. So I've got my noodles. I'll add the rest of my mango and coriander leaves in there. And I'm going to start off, I'm considering the sprouts. They seem like a lot, so I'm not adding all of them at the same time. Now these sprouts are great. I know people like to sprout at home, and I've tried as well, but they never come out this long. They only kind of get a little bit of a tail, and then that's it. And those sprouts are quite difficult for me to digest, so I prefer to get these sprouts from the supermarket that are fully sprouted. I mean, each sprout is like 2 inches long, so it's fully sprouted. It's easier to digest. You can see over here I want to get every little bit of the dressing out of the bowl, and here I am going at it with my fingers, mixing it well. You really need to get in there, guys, otherwise this salad will not come together well if you're not getting in there with your fingers. Now at this point I realize I can probably add the rest of the sprout, so there's no point in holding back a little bit. There is sufficient dressing, and so I have added all the rest of the sprouts, and this salad is almost ready. It looks great. It tastes even more. It was actually quite delicious. I was pleasantly surprised. Obviously I expected it to be delicious, but it was really that the last little punch of the chili oil really gave it that extra oomph, and I really enjoyed it. So here I'm going to take it out in my Tupperware container. I still have to add the sesame seeds, but I'm going to add them in the Tupperware container. I realize that there is a lot of salad here, and so I want to have every bite get the sesame seeds, so I'm going to add a sprinkle about halfway through, and then I'll have the final sprinkle at the top. That's a good way of making sure that it's evenly spread, because I really didn't want to continue massaging this salad anymore. It's pretty much it's pretty much done. It's good. After I have made my 2 salads, I made it a few hours before we had to go so that it could chill in the refrigerator. And it was really nice. It was nice and cold with the barbecue. So now I'm going to make the garlic buns. In this you could use butter, but I prefer to use margarine for two reasons. It's not as heavy and it spreads easier. So I'm using margarine over here. So I took 2 tablespoons of fresh garlic, and I'm going to take about 4 tablespoons of margarine, and to this I will add some Italian. So here I've got the Italian seasoning coming out from the fancy bottle, recycled and labeled by myself by hand. You know, I have to say, I've seen a number of people, especially on YouTube, who take so much care with their jars. You know, everything matches and it's well labeled, and they have, you know, all these label making machines, and I really envy them because I don't have you know, that level of motivation to I just like things you know, efficient and serviceable. I'm happy with that. As long as I can see the spice and I know what it is, I'm good with that. Anyway, so I've got my garlic spread ready, and I'm going to use the leftover pav bhaji buns that I had. So this comes in a pack of 12, and my husband and I ate 4 so with our pav bhaji yesterday. So I have 8 of these left over. Here's 4, and I'm going to cut it horizontally and just load it up with that garlic spread. Guys, you know, don't be miserly over here. Spread out, you know, I made 4 tablespoons of garlic spread, and plus the 2 tablespoons of the garlic itself. So that gives me 6 tablespoons to work with. I'm going to, you know, put it in between, sprinkle with a little bit of Parmesan cheese as well, and I'll cover it, and I'll add a little bit of the garlic spread on top. Yeah, and then I'll wrap it up nicely in foil, because this is going to go on the barbecue. So I'm going to seal the edges very well to make sure none of the butter escapes on the barbecue. So here you see me, you know, folding up the foil and sealing it quite well. And so that was just the 4. I'll do the other 4 now, and then the garlic bread will be ready as well. Here we go. I'm slicing, I'm loading it up with you know, I have to say, when it comes to making garlic bread, you can pretty much do this with any bread. You know, if you make a good garlic spread, you can make it with any bread. But this one with these pav buns is actually quite nice, because these pav buns are like dinner rolls, but they're quite porous, so the garlic actually gets into every nook and cranny. So I quite enjoyed it, even though you know, once we actually got it on the barbecue, for some reason we did burn it to some degree. We put it too long on the barbecue, and it was still tasty because the spread really got into you know, so we could take off, you know, it was burnt a little bit, not too much, just a little bit on the top, so you could kind of take off the really burnt bits and eat the rest, and we did that, and it was still tasty. So yeah, when you put it on the barbecue, be careful, because it does burn easily. In the past, I've left it on the, you know, the top of the top shelf of the barbecue, where you leave things to keep warm, and it warms through nicely. But for some reason this time, you know, it landed on, I left it on the barbecue itself, and so it did burn a little bit. So here is you know, the barbecue. We're at a son's house now. It's going. I've got the buns, the chicken drumsticks, and the chicken wings going through nicely, and here's the final spread. The chicken was absolutely delicious, and but the bao you can see is a little bit burnt, and the corn turned out really nice too. So it was a great dinner. Enjoy making these side salads.